And here we are at the end of the Allied fourth turn, June 9th. Well, let's work our way through the theatre of operations and see what took place and where we generally are now. Well, of course, the nice thing about the disrupted markers, these chaps here, for example, is well, they show us where retreats have taken place. So yes, these chaps here did a good job by forcing that lot up there, and then well, we can see these chaps were forced in that direction there. The boot was put in down here, but no retreats. Although here, as we can see, the grand total losses there were to get rid of one Fallschirmjäger unit, and I think it was a one-step unit, and then this unit here lost a step. So dramatically reduced strength here. They are still in the town of, that's Carentan, which of course folks who've seen Band of Brothers will remember. And as is appropriate, it's the 101st who are there having a crack at it. Then also there was combat here, which reduced the strength of the 88s. The 88th battalion that's there. A lot of that happened, actually. I think it was a lot of it was due to the fact that a lot of determined defenses were put forward, were done by the German commander. Same sort of thing here. This battalion here is sort of sticking out from the German line, and is also worryingly close. It's got two infantry units underneath it. Sorry, a bit of glare there. It's worryingly close to the beaches as well. So we want to see it off in short order. We're trying, and not yet. Then down here we had chaps who were, I believe, they were in this hex here, and then they had to. Where were they? They were there. Sorry, and they had to retreat. This sort of a thing. And we're hot in pursuit on those. There was some reserve movement that was used to be able to shoot units forward after combat. That was very useful. But of course, it does have to be borne in mind that the distance can be moved is only half of normal movement, so it is short, especially for foot sloggers. And also, of course, the thing to keep in mind all the time is this division, the line here. So while units are allowed to attack enemy units that are on the other side of the wall, as it were, the separation between the US and the British, which is this line here, so they could attack them. They couldn't attack them. They couldn't, well, yeah, they can attack, yeah, them. But you can't have both the US and the Commonwealth attack the same unit together, so that has to be borne in mind. And then, okay, so down here again, we had, looks like we had a determined defense there. The Allies have to be careful because they almost slipped up. They have to be careful that they maintain their, if they can't do it with actual ZOC bonds, they've got to maintain a wall of ZOC to keep the Germans from being able to penetrate through to Arromanches, which is, of course, where the British Mulberry is being built, or, of course, any of the beaches. And, of course, in saying that, excuse me, one has to remember the whole thing about being able to defeat an enemy and then move forward 2 hexes. Because, for example, I was worried about the whole idea of being able to move, for example, to this position here, defeat them, and then move forward 2 hexes, which could go 1, 2. Even if they move back to the town of Arromanches, for example, they would move there. Then the enemy could go 1, 2, and then they would be next to it, which I believe is, if I remember the rules, is all they need to be able to disturb the construction of the Mulberry. Yeah, so we've got some quite beefy forces there. What have we got? Well, there's a cadre, but at least we've got 8 there, and they're in mixed terrain, so they would be worth Or they'd be worth 10 on defense, so they're pretty safe, I would say. So let's see, moving on down. We did have a bit of a breakthrough down. Oh, we had a literal breakthrough down here. That's right. So they've been forced to retreat, and then the Commonwealth forces here, who are rather weak, move forward as much as they dare, which is to here. So I'm not sure if they are going to be chased down mercilessly. You'd think they would be by the German commander. Of course, there are German reinforcements coming on. So the German reinforcements coming on, that's still quite a long way up there. So the German reinforcements that come on, maybe it could be reached by a reconnaissance unit or something like that. But let's see. Even if they can't do that, they could at least start laying out a sort of, zone of control block along here somewhere to stop them from getting any further, because they sure as heck don't want them to be able to come down here and reach the edge of the map down here, because that is a victory condition. It's one of the elements of one of the victory conditions, of which there's a long list, and I certainly can't recite them off the top of my head. Then what else? So now we do have a Zoc gap. We can see there's a Zoc gap here. So the Allies could come straight through there if they wanted to. So the Germans are going to have to do something about that. And of course, it would be ideal if to do that, they had to pull forces away from the outskirts of Caen. But more on that later. In the meantime, let's see, we've got these forces here at Caumont, and so surely the forces at Caumont could, Caumont, up in this direction, and they could be able to insinuate themselves in this sort of general direction. Sounds promising. Right, for the Germans. But there was a big development down here, which was to say that the German commander had, unfortunately, guarded this particular hex with a unit that was very much on its last legs. It was self-propelled, it was self-propelled anti-tank unit with a whopping great combat strength of 1. And only 1 step to lose. So not surprisingly, that was attacked, and these chaps here sailed through. Now, of course, putting themselves in this position, they're in an ideal situation to be cut off and surrounded, but one has to push forward. If the German commander has to use troops to deal with them, then he's not dealing with the front line troops so much. Okay. Another interesting nugget is that the Allies now have, because they took some replacements here, so the Allies now have they've actually got airborne. They got 2 5s there, at strength of 10, and they're airborne with a troop quality of +1. So that's quite the powerful unit they've got there. Just a minute. Right, so as we pan back, then that's the overall situation. Let's see if we get back to this sort of thing. That looks pretty good. See how far back we can go here. Something like that. Swing that way slightly. Swing the other way slightly. Okay. The Allied commander was certainly very grateful of the fact that in the clear weather, he got his 2 US air support markers and 2 British air support markers, which gave each one, of course, gives a column shift. So that was great to be able to add to the naval support. And of course, the thing that's now starting to come into the situation is indeed the line of the naval bombardment zone. So as we can see, for example, that's this blue line here. So as we can see, for example, these units here now, there's the blue line coming along here. So these units here are on the other side of the blue line. So if they were being attacked, you would get no naval support. You could have air support, obviously, but no naval support. Same thing's going to be true here. Let's see, same thing is true here. Of course, then the other thing is that once you cross that line, then again, woven into the victory conditions. Sorry, let's just for completeness, let's look down here to get the same situation here. There's the blue line here, so these units are on the other side of the line. Okay, fine. So in the victory conditions, we have victory conditions about taking towns and cities that are beyond the naval bombardment line. So that means that if the Allies, for example, were to take Tilly-sur-Seulles, or wherever that one's called, Balleroy, let's say, or as we said, Caumont, then they are worth victory points. I mean, and I say here's to it. So it's time to move on to June 5th, June 10th, which will be the 5th German turn. And importantly, in this turn, the German player may now build improved positions, which is to say in entrenching. There hasn't been a lot going on in that department on the Allied side, but I think we can certainly expect to see some of that on the German side. Well, that's about it. So on to turn 5. And so here we are at the end of German turn 5, which is June 10th, 1944. And something occurred to me during the course of this turn, and as a result, we've got a lot of rather odd-looking red counters on the map board, and also this strange device here marking 4-1. The reason for this is that I realized with a bit of a shock what the situation was in terms of, particularly in terms of Commonwealth losses, in the sense that the automatic victory conditions, one of the ways for the Germans to win is if the Commonwealth forces have either lost through elimination or have got down to cadre level on 5 of their 3-step units. So, of course, you've got 2-step units, like you might have a small tank unit, a battalion, for example, that can take 1 loss, and then after the next one, it's gone. Or, of course, you might have a 1-step unit as well. But the bigger, beefier units, they're 3 steps. They can flip over, and they'll be on a narrow stripe, and then if they take another hit, another step loss, they'll be replaced by a cadre unit. Right, so in this current situation, what the British commander has to do is, I realize that I've come very close to giving the Germans a victory just by pushing the forces too hard. And although I had, in some cases, I decided, well, it was basically I wasn't thinking about the victory conditions. I was thinking about the unit strength, and I was just thinking, well, these frontline units are getting too weak. I need to pull them back, and when replacements become available, I'll replace, lick a paint, get them back on their feet, and send them back, patch them up, send them back to the front line. But the problem is, of course, is that I guess what's been simulated by the automatic victory conditions is that if there were sufficient casualties throughout the army, just not on the individual level of the unit, but throughout the army, then morale is going to suffer. And also, I think a reference is made in the rules that your leadership is being questioned. So you lose the game. So it's coming dangerously close to that. So what I've done is I've marked I've basically put a red marker in the vicinity. It's just an memory aid for me on my next turn, which is the Allied turn, of course, that something probably has to be done about the forces in question. The American forces have basically just had the paint scratched on a few units. But the British forces have definitely taken some pretty heavy casualties. And so without going into any particular details of the system I've used, I mean, here, for example, we can see a cadre unit there, and that's just drawing my attention to the fact that there's a cadre unit there. Here, for example, we have this unit here where if it took another loss, it would become a cadre unit, which is one of those 5 victory points, if I can call it that. It's not officially called that. That the German player would have. If you could have 5 of those, so if that became a cadre, that would be 1. That's 1 that's already there, so those 2 together would make 2. Any losses already sustained, there's 1 over there, so that would make 3. Things would start looking pretty dark. So what you've got to do is you've got to get these people out of the front line so that they don't get destroyed. And then when replacements become available, you have to replace them. What I'd been doing before is I've been trying to replace them at the front line, which obviously is a very slow process, an excruciatingly slow process, because generally speaking, the replacements are, well, let's see, on any kind of weather, you're only going to have either 1 or no replacements. So there we are. And then in one particular instance, I was going through and I noted that this could be a 4-to-1 attack on the next turn if they stayed where they were. So I just made a note of that. And then also I put that there to remind me that I've got to try to use reserve movement here, if at all possible, to try and get that unit the heck out of there. And let's see, beyond that then, all right, let's go back to the more conventional recap of what happened then on the German turn. It was more of the same, try and tighten things up around here. I don't think there was anything particularly dramatic happened up in this neck of the woods. No, there wasn't. No, it was mainly defensive up there in the Cotentin Peninsula. And then let's see, what else did we have? We had, of course, we had reinforcements. So we've had the Luftwaffe has rushed to the front here and has formed a bit of a line there. These chaps moving as quickly as they can up the road to Saint-Lô. These chaps used up the 3 strategic move markers and have gone twice as far, while still holding back from the front line so that they don't get caught by the front line. Of course, if it turns out, no, hang on a minute. We'll just leave that as it is. We've also had some entrenching going on. This is the first turn that the Germans have been able to do that, and that's what they're doing there. So we'll see how that goes. And then down here, we had some pretty good, counterattacks by the Germans. These chaps, of course, burst through to here, and they were sent back there with a tail between their legs. And so we had 2 infantry, brigades that have, let's just check that, they're from the 50th Division. Fiddle, fiddle, fiddle. Yeah, there we go. And then also, there was a bit of a pounding, I think, over here, which has put these chaps in this difficult position that they're in right now. So that means on the next turn, they've got that top unit there has got to get out of there, if it can. Hopefully with some friends coming to the rescue to try and take on the Germans, that sort of thing. And then we also had, let's see, I'll always follow the disruption markers. We have, yes, we do. Under here, I should probably twist that marker so it's a bit more apparent as to a disrupted. And there we go. We can see that it's dangerously low as well. Well, it's wounded, which means it's dangerously low. So they were forced to retreat. The unit that is underneath there retreated. And let's see, where did they get to? They got down to, let's see, 1 second. Yes, they were from here, I believe. So, let's see. So, we've got an interesting situation. We've got lots of things to worry about from the Allied point of view. Up until now, they've been pushing forward slowly. The only thing they really had to, in my mind, or rather in the mind of the Allied commander, the only thing they had to worry about was keeping an eye on the clock, keeping an eye on the calendar. Things were going forward slowly, perhaps. It felt slowly, but, Bayeux has taken, approaching Caen as usual. But the problem was it was being done at too high a cost. And so what the commander has to do now is obviously maintain the front line, keep pressing forward, but got to get those units. And really, as I said just a moment ago, it's basically if you've got a unit, let's say you've got a nice, robust infantry brigade or an infantry regiment, I imagine, would be the case in the case of the US forces. Yes. You've got them, they've got 3 steps. If they have had 1 step reduction, or they've taken a hit, to use the old-fashioned term, then that means if they get hit again, they will become a cadre unit. Okay, so if they've taken 1 hit, according to me, it means you had better think seriously about getting them out of the front line, because otherwise they will be hit again and will be contributing towards German victory. Unless, of course, the forces before them are, weak and so forth and so on. Right. So onwards and upwards then. So now we do the 5th Allied turn. We've got overcast weather, and we shall see. And here we find ourselves at the end of the Allied turn 5, which is June 10th. And okay, we've had some interesting developments. Up here, we had a breakthrough there. There was a battle there, which the Germans lost, and these chaps were able to come across and have positioned themselves. Didn't go too far forward. They could have gone further forward, but they positioned themselves there to form a nice, consistent set of zones of control. Not all with locks, but there's a lock there, for example, and a lock there. But pushing forward. I've still got the red markers on there to indicate the Allied units that are in danger, because for this, at the moment at least, I want to get it drilled into my head that I have to concentrate on those. There was progress made at Carentan, where the 101st, very historically, were able to have a go there. Jolly good stuff. And some armors come in here down the road after that was an example of reserve movement. They moved in there. These chaps have moved to here. A little bit of a penetration there, but they've got the town of Carentan. Not progress here was not made. They did manage to take a step from the 88s there, but that's all that happened there basically. And they did not have the strength to be able to attack the entrenched units as well, or the positioning to be able to do that as well as attack that. So the entrenched units, or the units that were entrenching, I should say, weren't attacked. This was actually, I don't think that was attacked. No, it was only a 1-to-1, and the resources from the naval support, for example, was being used elsewhere. So be it. Then let's see. Moving on, we had a breakthrough here and a breakthrough here, which is good. That was able to get down there so that these chaps would no longer have to move through a zone of control, and were able to use reserve movement to move 1-2 to that position there. These chaps are now surrounded by enemy forces, more or less. Okay. And, well, I suppose they are completely, aren't they? Because of, yeah, you can't, although you can move through one, if they were forced to retreat, you can move through one empty enemy zone of control, only one. It has to be the first one. Um, well, no, you can, if the first one is an empty zone of control, you can move through it. But there are also, of course, Zoc bonds. So I was just looking at this and thinking, well, they could retreat to there if they wanted to, but they can't because there's a Zoc bond there. Zoc bond here, Zoc bond here. This is my first Zoc bond game, so it takes a bit of time to fully grasp it. Okay, so that's good that they're surrounded. Good for the Allies. And then moving over here, let's see. Moving over here. I'm not sure there was much combat in the way of combat up here, as in actual combat. But there was over here, of course. That's right. Which is to say, there is Strong Point Hillman, which has been taken. And also there was a strong point at Ouistreham, and that has fallen as well. We've got some powerful Allied units there, haven't we? I know we've got pretty sure we've got let's see. Yeah, there's an 836 there and an 836 there, 2 5s there, so quite a bit of strength there. This hole here I don't like, but you can't be everywhere. You can't. He who defends everything defends nothing. Anyway, so okay there, and then there are no unsupplied Allied units. Okay, what else have we got? I think that's about it for now. So yes, oh that's right. So as far as the contention goes about. As I say, these chaps were able to get to there, so they are now protected by zones of control. So although the Germans could attack and then, well, by some miracle, I suppose, reserve forces could then move through the gap and attack them. But that sounds like a bit of a stretch. Alternatively, let's see, on the other case where there were forces in jeopardy, there's these two here. So there are two there that if either one of them lost one more step, the Allies would be in big trouble. But let's see, what have we got? The Germans can move men to here and here to attack them. They are in clear terrain, but at least they have a total strength of 9. So I suppose technically if the Germans were able to get 18 against them, they could have a 2-1, technically. And then they could amplify that with one shift using the artillery, or if they pulled away from over here and were able to get in armor that was actually better. Not from there, but I think here we have Panthers. Yes, we do. So if they were able to extract them, which I believe they could come down here and go up to there. They would be able to get an armor shift as well. So thoughts there for the German commander. Oh, that's right, Panzerlehr. We've also got, we've got Panthers down here as well. So... And of course, we'd have to get into divisional cohesion and so forth to make them count. Yes, and also the Allies liberally took to making sure that stacks in combat were topped up with a unit that could be lost without messing up what I'll call the army morale, which is represented by the loss of 7 American or 5 British 3-step units, or reduction to cadre of the same. Okay, anyway, that's it for now. So we move on to German turn 6, which is June 11. And let's see, in terms of new things happening on June 11, there's actually nothing in particular. So we'll see what happens. Okay, so here we are at the end of German turn 6, which is June 11th. And it's been the weather is clear category 6, which is the best clear weather, which gives the big thing is that it gives the Allies 3 air units from both the US and the British air support markers. So they're about to come into play now when the Allies have their sixth turn. Overall, the turn saw just 2 combats. German units, as usual, were reinforcing the front line. There were 2 combats. I can't remember if it was this turn. I think it was this turn. Yes, that. Let's do these first. That the improved positions were finally finished here by these chaps who are mainly Panzerlehr, I think, and so they've both got pretty powerful bodies of men and weapons there, and entrenchments. And so the improved positions mean that the enemy cannot use an armored shift, and also that the forces there will be using the improved position column on the determined defense table, which basically gives them, it's like having a +1 more or less, makes their defense even more determined. So they would be a tough nut to crack there in Bocage as well. One thing the German commander now is looking at, because of course as a gamer you have to be careful you don't miss this, is of course the line that marks the naval bombardment zone. So for example, this blue line here, as we can see, I get up to here, maybe that would be a better look at it there, the blue line that's running here. So of course now they've got improved positions, so they may choose to stay where they are because they've built the improved positions. But if they were willing to give up 1 hex, we can see that they could both put themselves on the other side of the naval bombardment zone, which might be an interesting tactic to use. Withdraw 1 hex so that you can't be the target of the battleships anymore. So that's a worthwhile consideration there. That could also be done down in this area, of course. I mean, look, we've got the German commander has lots of units that are right there along the naval bombardment line. So he may consider pulling back just slightly to be able to get the hell out of there. Right. Meanwhile, the Allied, let's see. No, the Allied, it was the German turn, right. We can see that, so there was combat down here, as I mentioned. There was 1 unit of 1 small an armored battalion, a silhouetted unit that was in this region here. I think he was either there. I think he might have been there. And, he got bumped off. And then we had this stack of the vulnerable, the 2 units there, which if they lose 1 more step are down to cadre level, which is a dangerous thing. They were forced to retreat. They didn't have a loss. They were forced to retreat, and actually they were attacked here by Panzerlehr with the Panthers. First time they've seen action in this operation. But also because of the clear weather, of course, we had the Jabos were a factor, and they knocked them down by 1 column shift. Anyway, the result was we had a retreat, and they lost a step. So the Proud Panthers have been reduced to a combat value of 2. And they decided they could have gone all the way forward here to keep the sword in the back of these retreating men, but they decided that discretion was better than that. Otherwise, they'd be very exposed if they were out there. So they've basically just formed up the line here. And as far as the rest of the line goes, it's still cohesive. There are no zone of control gaps. And by that, of course, I don't mean bonds, but there are no zone of control gaps where the Allies can actually just sail right through. Oh, we did have some more German losses in strong points. There were 2 strong points that were isolated and attrited and starved out of existence or that sort of thing. Let's see, one was here at. No, I can't read that. Let me see. Let's see, what is that up there? Let's see if we can read it from here. Up there at. Well, it's almost looked like Ravenoville. Okay. And then, gosh, there was another one down here somewhere. And yeah, they've both given up the ghost. I think the other one may have been here. So we've just got, in terms of strong points, well, we have this one way over here to the east. This one here, things are looking pretty bad there. And then up here, we did have, so we got these two left here. We had some interesting movement. These chaps decided to go into the strong point because if they're going to be attacked, why not be in a strong point? And they've got a zone of control lock across a bond across here, so that's good. Yes, so interesting developments. The looks like the Allies may have, by the skin of their teeth, gotten away with the whole issue of being able to withdraw their vulnerable units back, which are all still marked with red markers, as you can see. But now it's the Allies' turn coming up, and the big factor here will be, of course, because of the air forces and because of the Navy, they've got a total of 10 column shifts that they can deploy, and those should lead to some interesting results. And I say, here's to it.